Before the Knight Captain had traveled to the Vale of Myrtilane, it seemed the King of Shadows' progress had been slowed, perhaps even stopped. It was a vain hope, for barely a day after his journey into the Vale, the forces of the King of Shadows suddenly rolled across the land like a tide. There was no sign of Garius, no sign of the Reavers at the front of the Dark Armies, just a shadowy general that led the dead through town, city, and finally to Crossroad Keep itself. Without the Knight Captain to bolster the Keep's forces, Crossroad Keep quickly fell, and the soldiers were driven to Waterdeep and the surrounding lands. But there, at the unmarked ancient borders of the Ilfarn Empire, the Shadows stopped their advance and remained still. To this day, the line of shadow is one none will dare cross, and the people of Neverwinter live with the knowledge that there are stretches of the Sword Coast where dawn's light will never fall again. No one truly knows what came of the Knight Captain and the other heroes when they traveled to the King of Shadows' fortress, but all agree that the shadowy general that emerged must have slain the Knight Captain. For the general wore the Knight Captain's cloak, and bore a silver sword that had once belonged to the Lord of Crossroad Keep. In the year following the war against the King of Shadows, an eerie quiet fell over the city of Neverwinter. Emboldened by the actions of the Shard-Bearer, the thieves of Neverwinter took back the docks, the merchant quarter, and the rest of the city was claimed by their silent, dark law. The docks themselves became dangerous, and any criminal or outlaw not sanctioned by the Shadow Thieves was put to a quick, brutal death. Luskan viewed the events to the south in Neverwinter with a quiet wariness, never certain if the shadows that had claimed their southern neighbor would one day come for them. After the deaths of Sidney Natal and Torio Claven, however, no Host Tower mage or scout was willing to venture south to share their fate. Bevel, crushed by the events at West Harbor and the Second War of Shadow, soon deserted the forces of Neverwinter when they were sent on a resupply mission to Old Owl Well. He is said to have made a solitary home there, still tortured by the memories of what happened to him during the war. Shortly after the war, Dagon attempted to return to West Harbor, believing that the Shadow General that led the King of Shadows' armies could be found there. His path was the correct one, but not as he intended. He was intercepted by beasts along the road south of Highcliff and brought in pieces to the Shadow General, who watched Dagon be consumed by his minions, then raised him from the dead to die again and again for his amusement. It is said that Dagon's corpse is embedded in a pillar of the dead in the Vale of Myrtilane, his mouth left hanging open so the wind might whistle through it in a mockery of the song portals of Ilfarn. Following the rise of the King of Shadows and his general, the Mere of Dead Men became an increasingly desolate place. The ruins of West Harbor, in particular, became a dark gathering ground for the shadows and dead of the Mere, and the tiny farming village became a twisted shadow of the once proud dwelling of harbormen. The farm of Chandra Jarrow was soon claimed by the wilds surrounding Highcliff. Chandra Jarrow followed the path of her ancestor, her efforts forgotten and unknown as those of Amon Jarrow during his time. In the years after the war, a strange tranquility settled over portions of the Mere, in contrast to the horrors that had taken place there. There were sightings of a mysterious elven female, cloaked in mist, who would lead lost travelers to sanctuary within the Mere. The identity of the woman was never known, but glimpses of her over the years seemed to indicate that she was a troubled, sad figure and looked as if she had lost someone she cared deeply about. The Lord of Crossroad Keep returned when the King of Shadows came to reclaim the ancient citadel. The Servant of Shadow slayed all the inhabitants he had gathered, and he used their bodies to form a new wall around his home. It is said that this beast resides there still with the shadows, where the heads of his former companions form a silent gallery around him, frozen in dark screams. Of the Gith Yankee and their Lich Queen, no more was heard. Driven from the Sword Coast by the Shard-Bearer, it seemed as if the hunters had retreated to their citadels on the astral plane. Even the wisest sages of Faerun know that whoever holds such a blade shall have a long journey ahead of them, both in the realms and beyond. But that is a tale for another time.